Dr. Jazz.
Yeah. But I wanted to start this talk with your trio, and which I love. I love those tunes that Alberti on trumpets. I mean, that's such a killing band, man. And what's happening
Thanks.
with your trio? Are
Yeah.
you guys planning something new this year, or I mean, what's you as a band leader in that department?
Right. Well, there's some recordings that are in the vault, and they've just been reintroduced and mixed, and now all we have to do is master it and package it. But there's a fresh batch of stuff waiting, and it used to be much easier to get together because we lived closer together. Now I have the bass player is 7 hours east, and the guitar player is 7 hours west. And so when we get a decent offer and it makes sense to do it, we go out and do it. But we're in a higher phase of ourselves. We really hit the road really hard for a long time, and so now we're more selective, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like this role of being a band leader?
There's a lot to learn, of course. It's something else. I like it from the perspective of a rhythm section player and a drummer.
Yeah.
The logistics and everything is not so fun, but the music is so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like I know. Yeah.
Well, you must know your trio. I was looking at your trio earlier today. Fabulous, really nice exploratory music.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we toured
that's great
with those guys, with Bob Moses and Ariel.
Go ahead.
And they're like, both in their late 70s. So
Yeah.
that was, we had a 3-week tour, and man, me as the young cat kind of, man, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But the music was so much fun, so
It's a lot of work.
yeah.
That's what it's for. Yeah. Right. Well, I would love to get over there again in some capacity with the trio. So if you have any connections, please bring us over there.
Yeah, would be amazing, man. It's such a nice band, really. It's so hard these days in Europe also, I think, after the COVID hit.
Yeah,
it's a weird scene right now. So it's hard to predict. I mean, you have to plan really in advance because many bands still have bookings from pre-COVID that were promised. So the organizers are, fulfilling those out. And so it's a bizarre situation here, I think.
right. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a backlog of concerts as well as goods.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. But yeah, but Jeff, you've been one of my favorite drummers. I have you on so many records, and
Thank you.
Just your flow. Always when I hear you, like it's just amazing. And I wanted to start this talk like also with asking you, what got you excited for this? Well, for what you play, I don't know what it is. It's like jazz, improvised, fusion, funk, or whatever. I guess mid-70s.
I know.
What happened? What got?
Right. Yeah. I'm 64. Just turned 64 a few days ago.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And now
Congrats.
I can look back. Yeah, I can look back on the decades and see the different styles and all the the genres and the different bands and everything. What really caught my ear as a young drummer was the fusion scene back in the 70s.
Of
All
course.
that stuff was brand new. The electric jazz was just starting to happen and blending in with rock, but real exploratory. That's where I grew up. So I thought, oh man, what a great world to be in. So much freedom, so much expression. So much creativity, so much genius. When I listen to Chick Corea and John McLaughlin, and, Weather Report, and the whole family, that whole group back then, it was just an incredible time to grow up as a young, aspiring musician.
Did you see
That's what turned
those
me
bands?
on.
Did you see
So
those bands live then?
I've tried to. I did. I saw a few of them. I've been lucky to see some really great concerts. I tagged along with my older brother, and he was going to all these great places. So I was lucky to be there, just tagging along with him. But I did see. I saw Chick Corea. Oh gosh, I saw Weather Report when Jocko was 25 years old.
Oh,
and Shakti, John McLaughlin, and Zakir Hussain were opening up. So they did a fabulous set. And then the set change happened, and the lights got dark, and then you heard this train coming in, and you swear this train was getting louder and louder. It was going to crash through the building. But it was the opening soundtrack for Weather Report, and they came on and they played. It was really amazing. That was at the Lincoln Center.
Oh,
no, sorry, that was at the Kennedy Center in D.C. Kennedy, yeah.
man.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just to see Jocko, I guess, with Erskine, right? I mean, that must have been amazing. That's like
I think that was Alex Acuna back then.
Acuna. Oh shit, yeah,
Erskine.
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure. When I think about it, I remember Salamon, I remember Jocko, and now I can't remember if the drummer. It wasn't Eric Gravatt.
No, yeah, he was before. Yeah.
It might have been Alex Acuna, I think.
Yeah, it's just like when I talk to people, I talked with Peter Erskine, and he told me like amazing stuff about Jocko, like how they met, and it's just, and then you look at his footage, and it's just like, man, that guy was a genius, like on the instruments, really amazing.
Yep. So that's what got me off when I was young. That's what I wanted to aspire to.
How did you then decide to? I mean, I read you went to Berkeley then, right?
I did 1 year at Berkeley, and while I was there, it was just a flood of incredible inspiration. I was there. I had an opportunity to be in a band with Steve Vai called Winter, and we recorded this little sound. It was my first recording studio experience, and he was making dying baby seal noises with his whammy bar, and we were playing Marty Weintraub big band. So we had horns and charts and the whole thing. It was a great experience at 19 years old. And also Bill Frisell was there. Mike Stern was there. Branford Marsalis was there. And Jeff Watts was there. Kevin Eubanks was there. It was a really incredible time to be there. For that 1 year, I was just flooded with so much amazing stuff.
Did you play with those guys? Like, I mean, with Frisell and Stern and...
No, but I was in the front row, and I was just like, wow, this is possible? I didn't even know it. When Frisell played, everybody was talking about how psychic he was, because he seemed to know where everybody was going before they got there, and he was ready.
Yeah.
Wonderful to witness all that.
Yeah, Bill is amazing. I mean, I saw him live so many times, and it's just like, man, incredible player.
Yeah, truly.
When I looked at today, like, and these days, like already before when we planned our talk, the records I have you on, and like, there's so much stuff after 1990 something. But what was happening with you in the 80s?
Right.
Like, I mean, because the Aquarium Rescue Unit, I guess, started work like in later, but like prior to that, like, what was happening with you musically?
Right. I moved from Boston to Atlanta because there was so much more work to be had.
Oh, really?
So I quickly joined in with a bunch of great players on the top 40 scene. And we played at all the Carlos McGee's restaurants around the perimeter. And There was 4 or 5 of those places, and they all had top 40 bands. So that was a great scene to kind of cut my teeth and learn really a lot more about the backbeat, because I was coming from Berkeley, and so I had practiced a lot, but I hadn't. But the stuff I was practicing was more heady and more jazz oriented. So when I got down to Atlanta, it was a groove scene. So I quickly found myself some mentors and just really took notice. So that was a great place for me, a great choice for me to go to. I could have, I guess, gone to other major cities.
Yeah.
But Atlanta seemed like a place where I could kind of develop myself, you know. And there was a lot of work to be had then. And that was from 25 years old in 1983, or I moved to Atlanta in 1983. And I guess I was 24 years old, yeah. So from then, I met Bruce Hampton in 1984 through
Oh,
Dan
already.
Wall, the great jazz keyboard player.
Oh,
Yeah.
who played with
He invited me
Abercrombie?
to a wedding. That's
Dan Wall
right.
played. Yeah, I saw him
Yeah,
like
he was
many
living in
times.
Atlanta.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
He's so great.
monster.
He asked me, if I wanted to do a wedding in North Georgia, the mountains of North Georgia. I said, of course, any chance to play with Dan would be great. And actually, make some money, fantastic. So I get there and I meet Bob Lee, the bass player, wonderful, upright player, a gentleman. And then Bruce comes in with a young man who sets his gear up, and we say hello. And I didn't hear anything from him. I didn't hear him tune up or anything. And so we start playing the first song, and it's smooth jazz, totally appropriate wedding music. And Dan's just wonderful with his reharmonizations, and it's lush and beautiful, and it's groovy. And Bob's just, really laying it down. And then Dan Wall looks over at Bruce and gives him a nod, like take a solo. So Bruce turns all the way up, and he hadn't tuned up. It was just random. And he started playing random notes as loud as he could. And I thought, oh my God, this is so audacious. I can't believe what's happening right now. This is destroying the wedding. And I looked over at Dan Wall, and he's laughing his ass off, and he's trying to reharmonize and bring Bruce back into, make sense of what Bruce is playing. And I look over at Bruce, and he's got his eyes closed. He's digging in and just playing random stuff. And I look over at Dan. I realized they had a real special relationship. And the next day, I got a call from Bruce to come out and sit in with him. They had an improv group. It was at the Harvest Moon in Atlanta. I get there, and there's 15 people on stage. There's a flautist from the symphony. There's Bill Hatcher, incredible bass player, Randy Honey, an amazing guitar player. We had every instrument on stage, and we played through 3 improvs that were so free and so exhilarating that by the end of those 3, I looked over at my friend Randy Honey and I said, I think I found my calling. And he said, yes, I think you have too. And from then on, I just started turning down gigs. I moved into a garage in the back of a big house on East Lake Road in Atlanta, close to Little Five Points, where a lot of the stuff was happening. And I just almost took a vow of poverty. I had no pet, no girlfriend. My car died. I was living on $200 a month, and just playing for creativity, like the art scene. There's more performance art back then. And then one by one, I met Jimmy Herring first at GIT in Atlanta. Scott Henderson, the great guitar player, came by and did the clinic, and he needed a local band. So I was the drummer in the local band. After the gig, Jimmy Herring walks up and says, hey, man, I like to play with you, sometime. I play guitar. I said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? He said, nothing. So he came over and plugged in, and I remember him sounding like Steve Morse, just articulate and beautiful and incredible. And he had some great harmony stuff going on. It was almost like classical music. And then after that, I was working in a top 40 band with Dan Hofflinger and Sam Guest. rest in peace. And there was talk of a bass player and a keyboard player from Virginia Beach that was coming down. They needed work and they wanted to join the Top 40 band. It's called Knee Deep. So Knee Deep, we got the Burbridge brothers came, and they that was Oteil and Kofi. So they moved in with me, and we had a house together. We practiced all the time, and I swear that the Burbridge brothers gave me so much of myself. You know, not only musically, but you know, just those are some really special humans. And Kofi was like Yoda, just a master, you know, already, just so mature, incredible. So that led up to Bruce. And one day at rehearsal, Oteil comes in and sets his bass down and says, "Man, I'm just so fed up with this scene. So tired of just doing all these tunes." I said, "Well, come on down to Monday night." It was Monday, you know. I said, "Come on down tonight and sit in with Bruce Hampton and myself. We're at the Little 5 Points pub, and we just play whatever we want." And so he sat in, and it was just crazy. I mean, Bruce was on fire back then. There were laser beams shooting out of his eyes back then. He was so on fire. And so the whole thing was just lifted up as soon as Oteil got on stage with us, and just all of a sudden we were like this. And then Jimmy Herring saw what was going on, and he wanted to be a part of it. And finally, Bruce got him up on stage, and I remember he took about 3 steps across the room, leaped on stage, plugged in, and once again, the whole level of music just went way up. And so that's what I did before Bruce, up to Bruce.
Wow, okay, that's a nice intro to that. How did you guys with the Aquarium Rescue Unit? I mean, you basically almost like rekindled or reinvented the jam scene in a way. Like, I mean, you became really huge in the States, right? I mean, like, how did this development happen actually with you guys?
I think we were kind of under the radar. Although Bruce Hampton already had a relationship with Capricorn Records, so that was our lucky star.
Yeah,
they signed us to a 2-album deal, but we had already been on the road for a couple of years before that, really hitting it hard, 300 days a year.
Wow.
So by the time it was ready to record, we had already been together. The chemistry was happening, and you know, everybody knew what everybody's going to play, just like on a psychic level again. Yeah, that was an amazing experience to play with those cats. We were so inspired by Bruce. Bruce was talk about band leaders. He was the anti-band leader, but there was only one of that guy. We could spend an hour just talking about him, but he really invited us to be honest with ourselves, aspire for something bigger than our egos, you know, keeping our egos in check. It was always, the focus was always, and the topic of discussion was always intention. And I thought about it, and there's really only 2 things you can control in life, is your breath and your intention. And if you could start there, you know, everything kind of lines right up. But he helped on so many levels, philosophical levels, and, you know, breaking the mold. He didn't play music. He surrounded himself. He was a magnet for all these great creative musicians to come and be themselves and develop themselves. And he was like a kid in you know, we were the toys and he was the sandbox.
Yeah, that's nice to put. Yeah. Did you guys ever make it to Europe with that band? Because I don't remember.
No, there was talk of it, but
no, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's like interesting.
We're more popular now than we ever were then.
Yeah, funny, right? It's like this revisiting. Yeah, interesting. You know, I got to know you through. Obviously, I'm a guitar player, so you know, Shawn Lane blew my mind. So you knew I was gonna probably ask you about Shawn, but like, so sorry about that. But I have to go there also.
Don't apologize. You know, I love talking about Shawn.
Okay.
Talking about he was such a
You know, how did you guys meet, and like how it was for you as you know, I still listen to those records so much, to the temporal analogs and Time is the Enemy, the tunes, and you know, there is so many bootlegs out there, and I think I have like 20 of them at home still on CDs,
Right.
you know, when we changed CDs back then, like, and but like, you
Yeah.
know, what's the story with that trio, and how did you meet them actually, Jonas and Jeff, and
Yeah.
I mean
Sure. Yeah.
Shawn, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Aquarium Rescue Unit was on the road a lot, and one of our favorite places was Memphis. And whenever we played Memphis, Shawn Lane came out and sat in with us, and he always entertained us with his genius and his stories. Gosh, he would just keep us laughing and laughing and laughing, because Shawn Lane could see the absurdities, kind of like, you know, Frank Zappa could see through the culture and see everything, all the crazy stuff, and just make fun of it. Well, Shawn was kind of like that, but never had a bad word to say. But he would just look at something and just laugh his ass off, and you knew what he thought about it. But he would come out and sit in with us, so we always loved it. And Jimmy Herring and Shawn together was just wonderful.
Oh man,
they could really speak to each other. So when I left Aquarium Rescue Unit, it was just a month or two after that Shawn called and said, "Hey, I'm playing with Jonas, and we're coming through Atlanta. We have Kofi Baker on drums, and would love for you to come out and meet everybody, and for you to meet Jonas." And I offered to put them up at my place, so they stayed with me. And after that, I think during that hangout, we ended up listening to Keith Jarrett Trio with DeJohnette and Gary Peacock. And we were all just mesmerized by their communication and their openness, because they would play the head, you know, and stretch the head out, but then they opened the box and, you know, were totally free. And we wanted to do the same thing. So they invited me to Murphy's in Memphis, and it's a small little bar the size of, you know, just very tiny. And so we set up and we played. I had the time of my life. Jonas taught me a real quick Indian T-high, a rhythm, and I was just so into it, you know, so much freedom there. And after that was the beginning of it. And then my friend Shovik Dutta, who runs Abstract Logics and is managing Shakti and John McLaughlin's Fourth Dimension. He's been with them nearly 20 years, I think. He was putting a house party on in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he was going to webcast. So Jonas and Shawn and I showed up and set up in his living room, and he put the the video and the microphone up and webcast it. And that was the beginning, he says, of Abstract Logic's record label and distribution. And that was the first thing that happened in that realm, that world. So I met Shawn through playing with the Aquarium Rescue Unit, and then Jonas shortly thereafter, he called him. And that was just fantastic.
Yeah. How was the work process with you guys? I mean, how did you usually go? You know, I mean, Time is the Enemy. Let's say for me, that's one of the best fusion records out there. Like, you know, the tunes, your interaction, what you play as a drummer. Also, I mean, it's just like, how did you approach usually the music? I mean,
Yeah, a lot of that was developed on the road, and maybe half of it was already ideas that they had for songs or were already a song. But the goal was, in a live concert, the goal was to play a whole set of music, a whole evening, without playing anything we've ever done before, and trying to make up songs on the spot. And the formula for that was often similar to a raga, where we'd introduce just sound, and then scales over a drone, and no time, just free, like the beginning of an Indian rag, a lot section, and then somebody would introduce a pulse or a rhythm, and then everybody would just go with the next best idea for the next 2 hours. And if we could remember the first theme, we would repeat it, and then we would do something completely different. And then if we could remember the beginning theme again, we would return to it. And often after a gig, somebody was like, "Who wrote that song? You know, who wrote that song?" It came across like a song because it was bookended with familiarity. Yeah. You could do anything in the middle, but if you end close to where you began, all of a sudden it's a song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so beautiful how you also developed, you know, as a trio, you know, all these records going then to Zen House and that Persona and like, you know, all these different, and when I listen to the bootlegs, like you said, you know, it's just like so much different stuff. And just the chemistry
everybody gave each other. I think a big appreciation for space with Shawn and Jonas. Jonas had played with McLaughlin, who played with Miles, you know, he was just 1 degree from Miles and everything. And he really understood space and setting scenarios up. He would set up a scenario and stay with it and let us just have all the fun in the world. I remember one time we were playing somewhere and the equipment wasn't working right in his monitor, and he had to leave the stage to go tell the sound man because the monitors were being controlled from the front of the house. So he has to go through the audience and talk to the monitor guy. And so it was a duet. All of a sudden it was Shawn and I. And we just got cooking and we were flying. And I actually kind of had an inward vision, if not a feeling, of what it's like to be an eagle flying with another eagle.
Wow.
It was just so free. It was incredible. That was one of my strong memories of reaching a place where you've never found yourself before. All of a sudden you're at a height and you're looking down like, wow, everything's so tiny.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard this trio, I was just like, what is this, man? You know, trying to figure out also what Shawn was playing. I was like, man, this impossible lines and stuff, you know, just like, man, incredible.
Yeah, his lines were amazing. His melodies were incredible. Yeah. No matter how fast he played, there was always a beautiful shape to the melody. You know, he had, of course, he had his vocabulary, but it was always mixed up. You know, he would always reinvent himself, and he would sing along with these beautiful slow melodies. And he always requested that his voice be behind the guitar so that it just added kind of a pad to the note, you know.
Yeah. I would love it, yeah. But where did you talked about the openness before that you guys also did. What were your inspirations for that when you were younger? Or even, I mean, like, you know, you mentioned Keith Jarrett now and Jack DeJohnette, but like Indian, I guess, Zakir Hussain was there, of course, the influence. But like about this open playing, did you ever investigate also like this more open jazz stuff, like avant-garde and?
Oh, definitely, man. I'm such a fan of, gosh, you know, remember ECM records when all those 70s ECM records where Jon Christensen,
really? Oh, okay. Okay.
Eberhard Weber,
yeah, sure.
Chloe, you know, watercolors, and remember nonfiction, Bob Moses with Steve Kuhn.
Yeah.
All that stuff was really free and open. And Carla Bley, also Paul Bley.
Yeah.
And his experimental stuff. I really like that. And Paul Motion stuff also. Like, went to see him live. I've never seen a drummer like that before. He focused so much on what he was doing with the right hand. He would play this part of the cymbal and that part of the cymbal. And, you know, he was just moving all around the place trying to get variations and things. Every note was an event.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just a pattern or a beat. It was like every note was shaded or something. It was remarkable.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
so
know.
pre-planned, love it, love it, love it. Cecil Taylor,
Really,
man, Cecil Taylor, like
really.
I would
Wow,
love a chance to play with Cecil Taylor. Oh my God, yes,
wow. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
W-
Oh,
w-
Henry
w-
Kaiser.
yeah, sure. Wow, okay.
I did a couple of records with him, uh, like 4 years ago or something, and that's some really out stuff.
Oh
Um,
shit, I have to find it. Okay.
some of, yeah, yeah. His stuff is kind of hard to find, but that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I love that with you. You know, when I listen to you, you can do the groove thing, of course, and but then you can really do some weird
While
stuff.
I'm grooving, I'm always thinking, I just did this other thing right now. It's not always appropriate to go there, but I'm always walking that edge. Like I'm seeing who's ready. Who's ready. I look around, like who really wants to go there. Sometimes you get somebody just plays a little, and you go, answer them, and you kind of wink at each other. It's like, yeah, we could really go out if we wanted
It's happening.
to.
Yeah, yeah,
It's pulling. But Bruce always told us to follow out, don't lead out, let out take you out.
mm, yeah,
Instead of like, I'm going to go play out now. It's it's like Sun Ra. Remember listening to Sun Ra? He started out real in, and then every few years, he just something more interesting would come into the harmony or the rhythm until finally it was like he's out to Saturn. But I love those 50s and 60s Sun Ra
yeah,
with John Gilmore.
yeah,
And that stuff was just so sophisticated and beautiful and just beautifully not edgy, but it invited the unknown in a comfortable way. It was I think it was really just genuinely looking for higher realms of sound and interaction
yeah.
musically.
Those guys, yeah, yeah. Uh, how did you, after, how did you, I started this talk with you being a band leader. How did you decide to do Timeless,
I think
actually?
this
When was the moment for you that you decided, okay, I'm going to start
ah
leading my own
well
bands?
well um, my wife was pushing me to start my own bands, regardless of all the other stuff that I was doing. But it seemed like everything I was doing was a beautiful flower that bloomed and decayed. None of them were really long. You know, like some people join a band and they stay with them for decades and decades. But I've always had these little outings,
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. I wouldn't change anything. Um, but Timeless in particular, I wanted to do something that was very beautiful. Just above all, I wanted it to be gorgeous, and I wanted it to be timeless. The at least the tunes,
the tunes are
the
beautiful. Yeah,
delivery,
yeah,
the solos, they were so beautiful, and the solos. Oh my God, the solos are some of the most beautiful solos I've ever heard. Like on the par with Joe Zawinul's beautiful melodies and Wayne Shorter stuff. The way Kofi would play, um, or Paul Hanson
Hanson.
on
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bassoon.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow! Just so gorgeous. So it was during the first Gulf, no, the second Gulf War that it was right after 9/11, and George Bush decided he was going to mobilize the war effort. And I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah,
Let's put
exactly.
some beauty in the world. Let's put some beauty in the world. And that was kind of my thought then. Like we need more beauty, so I'm just going to do this.
Yeah, no, it's
And I told everybody, yeah, I told everybody just play, like I want a gorgeous album, just play beautiful, and they
mm,
sure did.
yeah. We talked about Timeless, and how did you write the music, or how do you write music? What's your process there? Like when you
Oh,
decide for,
I asked everybody. I asked everybody to contribute to this one, so you can see that on a
yeah, like Paul
album
did
list.
something, yeah, and Kofi, yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and even Derek Jones, great bass player, played a guitar on a song. So the improvs are the only uh, collaborative thing on my part and everybody else's part. So we did a bunch of improvs and
yeah,
3 like full length, improvs. So that was my approach on that. The songs that I've written, I consider kind of silly, and they maybe belong somewhere else in a different a different configuration or group or something. I have a batch of stuff, but I don't consider myself a writer really.
mm,
Maybe I should get over that, but my contributions are little riffs, phrase, little melodies, but
yeah,
often I need help, taking it to the next level. But I tend to be more into the arranging thing, now.
yeah, yeah,
Really, I enjoy being creative in that realm.
yeah, yeah. No, it's always interesting to you mentioned Paul Motion, and sometimes you said simple melodies. Sometimes we jam on a Paul Motion tune with friends, and it's just so amazing. It can be like
Yeah,
12 notes or 9 notes, and it's just like,
sure.
man, it's so strong, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, man. Do you know Sonny Sharrock,
sure,
Ask the Ages,
yeah, one of my favorite albums.
produced by Bill Laswell? It's got me too. And all the melodies are so simple, like nursery rhyme.
Yeah, yeah,
And then again, over and over, and cycling over and over, just shredding the whole thing. That's more my approach, I think.
yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you about Jeff Coffin also. Are you guys still playing together sometimes? I mean, I love what you guys did, the duo and the mutat and stuff. Like,
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, he's one of my best friends ever.
mm,
He's probably got a lot of best friends. He's one of those just open book, gregarious humans. Yeah, we talked recently about doing something like this is the year we're going to do it again.
oh,
So
fantastic.
we'll see what the year brings. And I'm so happy for him. Recently, his most recent album was up for a Grammy, and Snarky Puppy ended up grabbing the Grammy. Yeah, so great for them. But it was fun to see Jeff Coffin out there on the rug,
Yeah,
the red carpet, and yeah. One day he'll have his palms in the cement,
yeah.
on Broadway or
Or
something.
or his beard, probably. Also.
His beard, yeah.
Yeah. W-
No,
w-
he's a great guy and so creative. In his whole songbook, there's only just a handful of songs that are in 4/4.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so playing with him, you always got to be on your toes.
How do you
But they're
approach this
also
stuff when you play his
a lot
music?
of them are like ornate. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, how do you approach his music? And especially odd signatures and odd times. How do you envision like a bigger picture when you see a tune, or what's your approach there?
Right. But I know that he's listened to a lot of Ornette Coleman, a lot of Billy Hart,
Mm,
some and a lot of soul and a lot of New Orleans music. So I know he loves the groove. He loves boogaloo style, zigaboo, modal-esque drumming,
hmm
and that blends itself into jazz because it's got a shoo-be-doo kind of
Yeah,
feel. It's not it's not tight. It's just flowing like you would talk, like you would talk, like you would talk. Yeah. So approaching it kind of with a loose goose, greasy kind of soulful thing. Even in the hard times, you know, it'll be a melody, a particular melody that has only so many notes, so that determines the bar, or the time signature. But the melodies always sound like natural. They don't sound cut off. If it's a 7, it sounds completely, complete,
normal.
Just following the shapes. Yeah, following those shapes. I think for a drummer is, that's the ride you go along with there. And if you can imply a backbeat somewhere in there to make it kind of almost danceable. It was so fun. We were playing Vegas once, and Kofi's there, and Felix Pastorius is there, and Jeff Coffin, and we're in this lounge, martini lounge, and they send out the dancers, the waitress dancers, and they got props, and they're dancing around, and we're playing an 11. So we're playing like a really fast 11, and they're, trying to figure it out. They're just doing their thing. We just looked at each other and just laughed, because that's pretty absurd too.
When is the first time you guys played together with Jeff? Was it on the jam scene you met, kind of, or?
Right after Aquarium Rescue Unit, I joined Jonas Hellborg and Shawn Lane, and then we did a year and a half of really intense stuff, and then took a big break. And during that break, my wife and I decided I needed to earn some money. I was playing art music, and that was fine, but we need some money too. So that an opportunity came along, and my good friend Ty North, bass player for Leftover Salmon, another jam band, bluegrass, in the bluegrass world. Yeah, they were on the road. They were just lost their drummer. The drummer just quit, and so I came on board, and I told them I could do 2 years, and then talk about everything. If it was going on good, if it made sense to stay, I would do that. But I was looking for a means to an end. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to establish credit. I wanted to start a family, and all that stuff happened with Leftover Salmon. We got busier and busier, and more money came in, and health insurance started happening. And both of my kids were born during the time I was with Leftover Salmon. And then after that, Jazz is Dead came along, and I thought that would be a good thing to do. So I did that, and then for a while we did it with Rod Morgenstein and myself, 2 drummers. And then I left that to go on to Susan Tedeschi, and then Rod Morgenstein stayed on as the main drummer in that one. So it went Billy Cobham, myself, Rod Morgenstein, and I never thought in a million years that I would ever be involved with anything that Cobham had going on. My life has really been blessed. Been in the right. Some of these things I think back on, like I had a chance to play with John McLaughlin for 26 shows.
Really?
Over
When was
6
that?
weeks.
When was that?
That was the 40th anniversary of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and we did a short run with Jimmy Herring Band opening up for the Fourth Dimension. And so we did the first set, Jimmy Herring, second set, John McLaughlin's Fourth Dimension, and then the third set, we did all 9 of us, and we ran through quite a few of the old songbook, including a couple of tunes that had never been toured. They'd been recorded, but they hadn't played live.
Wow.
Like Eternity's Breath. So it was a thrill to be the second drummer behind Ranjit Bharat. Amazing drummer, Konakal,
he's killing,
Indian rhythms and jazz and fusion. He's killing, right?
Yeah.
So I was like a tag along, and
Come on.
I just counted my lucky stars, man. I counted my lucky stars. It was so incredible. John told me so many great stories, and one of them is the exact same story, almost word for word, that Bill Evans, the sax player, told me. We had a chance to play a gig together, and he told me what it was like and his first gig with Miles. So both of them told me the same story, that Miles invited them on to play and sit in, and they were going to play a medium tempo jazz standard that everybody knows, Autumn Leaves or something. And they go through it and they're swinging and everything's fine. And then Miles stops the band and counts off the tempo like quadruple time, like quarter notes right here or something, And then one by one, he starts cutting off the band members, and goes over to John McLaughlin and says, play a solo, play. So John's shredding because the tempo is so fast, and he's just going for it. And then one by one, the band members are cut off until finally it's only John McLaughlin playing. And Miles is like egging him on, like, go, play, Left him out there for a while. And then after the gig, Miles came up to him and said, you know why I did that to you? And John said, no. And Bill Evans said, no. Miles said, well, because after that, you will never be afraid.
Mm.
So it just put him on the spot, made him just, draw blood right there in front of everybody. And after that, nothing should bother you.
Yeah.
You'll never be afraid to do anything after that, right?
Wow, that's beautiful, man.
Interesting.
Are you still in touch with Jimmy Herring also? Do you guys still play together? Or?
Yeah, we were in touch most recently, a couple of months ago.
Oh, okay.
And last month, actually. So he's starting another record. I'm not sure he knows what direction it's going to be in. I think it's going to be more soul and R&B and more blues. I think it's more blues based, not a fusion record. I think he wants to do something that's going to be more like what Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi are doing.
Yeah,
where they have just a fantastic Southern blues band, and the next generation carrying that tradition on, and on such a high level, man. So amazing, so soulful. So I think Jimmy's ears bent more in that direction these days. We'll see what he comes up with.
Yeah, I love what you guys did together. You always seem to have such a nice chemistry going on. Like you said, like
man, I used to. Yeah, I loved playing for Jimmy, underneath Jimmy, because he'll pace his solo, and then there'll be these moments where he's going to flip the switch, and then it's my job to go up there with him, and just present him on a silver platter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's the ultimate garnish on the silver platter, and I always enjoyed doing that.
Yeah,
but I got to tell you, Alex Makachek, playing with him.
Oh man,
being around him.
How did you guys play together?
Level.
When did you guys meet? Actually,
we have an album.
Yeah, I have that album. We're friends with Alex. I've known him for 15 years almost. So
his great sense of humor.
Well, Austrian.
He's just fantastic. Yeah, so insightful, wonderful, a very quick wit, and wow, what he's doing. I think John McLaughlin has this quote, something to the effect that Alex Makachek is beginning where I'm ending. So he's really paying tribute to him and recognizing his genius. I heard him on a Neil Fountain recording recently. Yeah. He did a solo. It sounded like Holdsworth's twin. He's no barriers, none whatsoever, rhythmically or harmonically or tone. So it's just free as a bird.
Yeah,
some of the most astounding and beautiful music I've ever heard coming out of him.
How did you guys hook up? I mean, I know you did that record with Matthew Garrison, right? But like, when did you guys start playing together?
Yeah, that is on the label that Shovik Dutta owns, Abstract Logics.
Yeah.
So Shovik Dutta, he had he signed. So he's got Jimmy Herring and Oz Noy, Wayne Krantz, and John McLaughlin, and for a while, Alex Makachev. So you can tell what he digs, man. He likes, really going for it, fusion stuff. So that's how I met. Sheldick lined it up, said, "Hey, I want to put a trio together with you and Alex and Matt." And I said, "Okay." Yes, definitely. Funny thing about that, wasn't so funny at the time. So we had booked a 10-hour session in a recording studio in Raleigh that on the website looked great. So we showed up and the headphones wouldn't work. They couldn't turn on some of the machinery, couldn't figure it out. Called in the engineer, that worked there, and they struggled. 6 hours went by before they could get headphones.
Oh, shit.
So meanwhile, we're going through some ideas and we're talking about what we're going to do. And it's like, "Are you ready yet?" "No, not ready yet." So we play some more. So I had 4 hours to do the drum tracks on that record. And then for the next almost year, Alex recomposed. So he would take the drum tracks and parts of the music that happened that was on the spot that was good, and then he would augment that and write around it and recompose around that. So he was able to marry every single hit that I did with a musical idea, and it made me sound like tighter than I've ever played in my life because he was able to, compose to my drum track. That was just brilliant.
Yeah, he's a monster. I have to send you. He played on one of my albums 2 years ago, and I sent him it was during COVID.
Okay.
And I sent him a track. I wrote a tune which was like really constant changing, like 11, 7, 9, 4, 3, 11, blah blah. And what he plays on it, I'll send you a track. It's just like,
I can almost hear it. I know it's futuristic.
Yeah.
I know it's never been done before.
Yeah.
And it's going to take 100 years for everybody else to figure out how to do what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But cool. Jeff, not to take more of your time, I just wanted to ask you for this year, what are some of your plans for this year, like gigging wise, and who are you gonna play with? And...
Right. Well, right now my life is balanced, a real good balance between a nice amount of home life with Boris, who is right here.
Yeah.
This is Boris. And we go to the river almost every day. He knows the word. If I tell him we're going swimming, he knows. Look, he knows. We have to wait for that, buddy. But so I have quality. Where are you? I think I lost you.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, there you are. I have good amount of studio work, teaching, and local gigs and some national gigs, but it's a really great balance. It's like the perfect 4 seasons. It's not too much of one thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And Daryl Scott is an amazing. I play in his band with Bryn Davies on bass. She's amazing. So whenever we have the opportunity, I do that. I drop everything and I'll do that. And otherwise, it's just living life, enjoying playing, practicing, and all the above.
Beautiful. Yeah, nicely put. Cool. Great, man. Thanks so much, Jeff.
I wish I was in your neck of the woods, man. I'd stop by and hang out.
Oh shit! I mean, if you're in Europe, we live like in a really nice house on the top of a hill near the forest. So if you're in Europe, we have a guest room here. Come over, you guys, and explore the country. So you're invited kindly. So
okay, we put it out in the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.